Dr. Kelvin Daley, who is at the center of a land dispute in Cades Bay, is alleging that his removal from the land is politically motivated. Dr. Daley said he was given permission by the Department of Agriculture to use the land for farming purposes since 1998. He claimed he has been using the land since. However, Premier Brantley said that the Agriculture Department informed him that the land was not in active agricultural use for over 8 years, and it was cleared by the government in November. Dr. Daley said the comments made by Premier on the issue on his weekly radio program recently suggested that the issue is a political one and is not legal or ethical, as the Premier is suggesting.
This, Mr. Huey, is not a question of culpability or even a legal argument about land tenure and who is right and who is wrong. This is a question of abuse of power by a government against a member of the opposition who just happens to be a farmer. Mr. Huey, the land issue was also manufactured as a part of a larger political strategy designed to help the CCM candidate in St. Thomas's. If you listen to the Premier's broadcast a week ago Wednesday, he alluded to the fact that he stood with the young men of St. Thomas's against the big bad Daley who is trying to steal government land. That is a narrative that they're pushing, us against them. A divide and conquer, we're going to take all strategy that has divided this country.
Dr. Daley, speaking on Voice of the Caribbean Radio's Let's Toss in Kitts and Nevis on Tuesday, was asked why he did not seek formal permission to use the land.
Would it have been then not prudent to sort formal arrangement for the use of the land so that if the government comes and try to get you off, you can show them, hey, I have papers, I am in legal use of this land?
Mr. Huey, that is a sound question. It's a good question. That was an error on my part to underestimate the depths at which these gentlemen hate me and hate the Nevis Reformation Party. That is my fault. That is my burden to be underestimating them. And I beg for forgiveness for my party and the Indonesian public, but I never thought in my wildest dreams that it'll come to this.
Brantley was asked about the incident at his press conference last week. He condemned any act of vandalism, but said as far as the Department of Agriculture is aware, there was no formal agricultural activity on the land for some 8 years prior to the clearing of the land.
Since there was no lease, there was no tenancy, as I said, I don't know that there could have been any eviction. The lands were simply abandoned, so far as the evidence shows. And in any event, some young people would have approached the government and asked for lands to farm, and they were provided with a portion of those lands. It is after the government went, as we're doing for all farmers, to clear the lands, to plow and prepare the lands, that I gather the gentleman showed up again and some type of altercation emerged. Notwithstanding, I have said at the outset of this press conference that we must condemn any acts of criminality against anybody, and we must condemn any acts of vandalism against anybody. But we have also to ask our people to conduct themselves lawfully, decently, and properly. Because we have farming going on at Cades Bay, we have farming going on at Potworks, we have farming going on at New River, we have farming going on at Prospect. We have lots of farming happening on Nevis. We have backyard farmers, we have commercial farmers. I'm told yesterday, informally, that we have over 70 registered farmers on the island. We have animal farmers, we have fisher folk, and nobody else seemed to have any confusion.
Dr. Daley said the Department of Agriculture had informed him that a notice was given last year for farmers using land without a formal arrangement to come in and regularize such arrangements. This notice, Dr. Daley said, was given on Vaughan Radio, but he was unaware of it. Dr. Daley said that he has reported the incident of vandalism to the police, but he doubts anything will be done on the matter. He is also mulling legal action, but refrained to say whether he stood any chances of gaining legal use of the land without any formal documentation. Andre Huey, Skn Newsline.
The legal prohibition of nationals engaging in gaming activities at approved enterprises was removed during a late March sitting of the National Assembly of St. Kitts and Nevis. The legislative bill sought to strengthen financial loopholes as part of the anti-money laundering legislative reforms required for domestic and international purposes. Since the introduction of the first casino operation on St. Kitts and Nevis, residents were not allowed to participate based on social, religious, and economic consideration in the 1970s. But over time, many nationals participated freely in gaming at local casinos and gaming parlors as enforcement of the law was relaxed.
Over time, we saw the conflict between the private wishes and the legislative agenda, in that some were being prohibited from participating legally in gaming here on the island, but they would go to St. Martin and they would do the same thing. And one wondered at the wisdom. How far could the state properly intervene in the actions of private citizens and residents? This bill then attempts to confront that reality, and generally I think at clause 34, if I'm not mistaken, would attempt to remove that prohibition, which would have prescribed the participation of locals. Indeed, over time, that has been more on the bill but not being enforced.
The legislation also tightened legal requirements in the operation of casinos and gaming parlors to reduce the potential for money laundering and the financing of terrorism.
The second element, Mr. Speaker, is to implement a licensing system for all forms of legalized gaming in St. Kitts and Nevis. The third element will be to update the institutional arrangements for supervising, regulating, monitoring gaming and racing operations in the Federation. Update the legislation to appropriately capture and satisfy FATF's anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism financing requirements, and of course to introduce certain minimum control systems to facilitate the proper accounting records to detect fraudulent activities.
The amendments were part of the larger Companies Amendments Bill 2021, supported and passed by parliamentarians in the National Assembly on the 25th March. Glenn Barth, Skn Newsline.
Recently, the Organization of American States observed the 4th annual InterAmerican Week for People of African Descent in the Americas. The theme was Ending Slavery's Legacy of Racism, the imperative for strengthening justice and resilience in Afro-descendant communities in the Americas in the face of COVID-19. A number of activities were held between March 22nd and 26th in commemoration of the week. Jacinth Henry Martin, advisor in the Office of the Assistant Secretary General Coordinator at the OAS, spoke to Skn Newsline in an exclusive interview about the significance of this commemorative week.
Some persons feel as if slavery is over. What is there to think about? What do we need to focus on? We need to focus on the legacy of slavery. So slavery may have ended, but the legacy of slavery, the vestiges of slavery that still stay on, for example, in some countries, persons of African descent don't have equal access to medical care, to health care. They are denied opportunities to participate fully in democracy, in participating as political political participants, and in which they're able to bring to bear their concerns, not just for their individual selves, for their people. And these are all aspects of our reality that must be focused on. And this is a particularly seminal week on the Inter-American calendar in which we can do that.
The OAS Assistant Secretary General, Nestor Mendez, underscored the importance of observing the annual event with activities that foster great awareness and respect for the heritage and culture of people of African descent and their contribution to the development of society. He noted that the selected theme for this year highlights the ongoing struggle to eradicate the vestiges of structural racism which permeate our societies and the necessity to implement measures to address its root causes and engender a more just society. Andre Huey, Skn Newsline.
The St. Kitts and Nevis Netball Association has been recreated and a new executive body has been elected for a 4-year period to ensure that netball continues to be played competitively within the federation. The new executive was elected after a keenly contested election at the headquarters of the National Olympic Committee / Commonwealth Games Association on March 27th. Dion French has been elected as president, and his team includes Alistair Thompson, first vice president, Terence Crosman, second vice president, Vera Herbert, secretary, Rodona Chumney, treasurer, Corey Edwards, assistant secretary treasurer, and J.D. Keynes, public relations officer. While savoring his victory, French indicated that it is time to recognize the mandate of his new executive, which is to have netball played within our communities and schools. He also spoke of the need for a holistic approach to the development of the sport, which includes reaching out to those who were unsuccessful in the election and the representatives from each club. President French indicated that netball is an integral part of the personal development of young women in our communities.
It is very important because netball is one of, or the only sport for females, and we want to ensure that the young ladies now and in the future generation have an avenue to express themselves. Netball is not just a game to play. It also teaches you discipline, management, and so we want to ensure the continuation of that.
And of the National Olympic Committee and Commonwealth Games Association, Alfonso Bridgewater, extended congratulations to the new executive and intimated that this move was requested by his organization for an extended period of time. He revealed that as a result of the election of the new executive, the association will now be able to access financial and technical support from the NOC/CGA.
The National Olympic Committee and Commonwealth Games Association would be there to provide support, technical and financial assistance wherever possible to get this particular organization back up and provide the support that the predominantly female sport that we have in Skn Newsline netball could be back to its glory days.
Vice President of the NOC/CGA, Dennis Knight, who spearheaded his organization's efforts to recreate the sporting body, expressed his gratitude to the Nevis Department of Sports, particularly its director Jamia Claxton and the representatives from the various netball clubs from throughout the federation.
Well, this has been a process for some time in the making, and I would like to say led also by the Ministry of Sports in Nevis, Mr. Jamia Claxton, who is the Director of Sports there, in conjunction, of course, with the National Olympic Committee. In the end, we were able to mobilize 16 clubs, I think it's 11 in St. Kitts and 5 from Nevis, who eventually came to the election today and elected this new executive.
The election was based on a constitution that was approved just last month, February. The first formation of the St. Kitts and Nevis Netball Association was in 1979, when St. Kitts and Nevis participated in the World Netball Tournament. It became dormant shortly after for a number of years. Efforts to revive the organization in recent years proved futile because of the inability for representatives from both islands to reach a consensus. However, with a new executive elected and the association recreated, plans are being formulated for club netball to be played within the coming months.
Elliots Funeral Parlor is the first licensed embalmer in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have a friendly and professional staff. At Elliots Funeral Parlor, we offer a wide range of packages from $6,500, homegoing service at chapel, locally made caskets, tailoring of outfit for deceased of your choice, wake, overnight with slideshow, funeral, death announcement, obituary, booklets, family pin-ons, memorial books, preparation of funeral arrangements, wreath, fresh and artificial, caskets, live streaming, vaults, tombstone, grave marker, international shipping, import and export, mounted oversized ultimate 1,000 pounds body lift, 24 hours removal and transportation services, walk-in refrigerator unit for temperature-controlled body storage, prep room with embalming station, and an assortment of embalming fluids and accessories, a mortician, cosmetologist, or restorative makeup artist. For further information, call 469-3298, 664-2007, or 660-0186. Elliots Funeral Parlor in Gingerland, Nevis. dedicated to those we serve. Football is back, and the St. Kitts and Nevis Football Association will be bringing you live football on its website, www.sknfa.com, with Premier League Live. Without fans in the stadium due to COVID-19 protocols, you can now watch every single Premier League match this season on www.sknfa.com and click on Live TV. Games are shown live on every match day with halftime and post-game shows. It's Premier League Live. Commentary, analysis, action. Never miss a game. Autoplus Car Wash, located on the College Street Gut, Bastyr, St. Kitts. Bring your car to Autoplus Car Wash to remove water stains, wiper marks. Get your doors, roof panel cleaned, seat floor mats, buffing, headlights, and engine wash. You get quality service at the best price at Autoplus Car Wash. They really care for your car. Call 765-5140 or visit them on the College Street Gut, Bastyr, St. Kitts. Autoplus Car Wash, where the service is number one.
The alert level remains at orange for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is dealing with an effusive volcanic eruption of the La Soufrière volcano. The high hazard zone warning has been in effect from December 2020, when the dome was discovered. National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, closely monitored the hazard, following small-frequency volcano-tectonic earthquakes in March 2021. Director of NEMO in St. Lucia, Doreen Gustav, says the La Soufrière volcano is likely to erupt.
Due to an increase in seismic activity in the past week at the St. Vincent La Soufrière volcano, St. Lucia was contacted by the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Agency, which is CDEMA, to determine how prepared we are in the event of an eruption. And based on the information, an eruption is imminent, but we can't tell exactly when it will happen.
In preparation for any eventuality, on Saturday, March 27th, NEMO called an emergency meeting with all stakeholders to update and plan its response to a volcanic hazard. According to Deputy Director NEMO, Maria Medad, communities in the south of St. Lucia have already been identified if an evacuation is deemed necessary.
From Dennery, as far as Soufrière. And the reason for looking at these is that we're not sure in terms of wind direction, etc., what is going to happen and how these communities will be affected.
Regarding the risk of tsunami, Medad says tidal waves associated with volcanic eruptions are rare. She also addressed volcanic ash that could affect St. Lucia's air quality and notes the hazard depends on the intensity of the eruption. St. Lucia has made known its intention to step up and assist St. Vincent in the event of a mass evacuation of Vincentians. Medad says shelters in the north of St. Lucia have already been identified for evacuees.
The shelters that they would be accessing would be treated as quarantine shelters. So they would not be able to go out and mingle with the locals on arrival. They will do the necessary quarantine period. The screening will be done with them, so that the Ministry of Health is aware of the health conditions.
The La Soufrière volcano violently erupted in 1979. Director of NEMO says all agencies involved in the response regionally and in St. Lucia are girding for the worst-case scenario.
All of the agencies basically have put their plans together, and what they need to do is to tighten this plan. I think we're at the final stage of that in order for us to feed into our national plan for response to that hazard.
NEMO plans to roll out an aggressive sensitization drive in the coming weeks to keep the public informed and educated in the event of a disruptive explosion of La Soufrière in St. Vincent. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.
The amendment to the Cannabis Act of 2018 is geared at clarifying some of the practical aspects surrounding the issuing of medicinal cannabis.
Leader of Government Business, Senator Mary Claire Hurst, piloted the Cannabis Amendment Bill, which has 30 clauses on the medicinal use of cannabis. It makes not only general medical practitioners eligible to dispense cannabis, but pharmacists and dentists as well. The amendment also creates a framework for people seeking to access the drug.
A patient who is in possession of medicinal cannabis recommendation issued by authorized medical professional shall apply to the Authority for Medicinal Cannabis Patient Identification Card.
The amendment also makes a provision for cannabis to be used for therapeutic purposes, a move which Leader of Opposition Business, Senator Richard Lewis, supports.
Medicinal Cannabis Therapeutic Center license, which shall permit the use of medicinal cannabis products for the purpose of massage therapy and other external treatments. Therapeutic center license can be issued to individuals who so want to exploit that. And so it's more opportunities for Antiguans and Barbudans to benefit from and to exploit.
Meanwhile, Government Senator Colin Brown says the bill can have major tourism benefits.
Antigua could be marketed as the marijuana destination. You know how many people will come here? You know how many people?
Jessica Russell, ABS News.
For the Ramirez and Remolina families, the pain is unbearable. Four of their relatives were killed last week during a military operation ordered by the Venezuelan government. Security forces accused them of being part of a Colombian rebel group and said they died in combat. But neighbors and family members insist they were innocent, taken from their homes and executed.
I was looking out for my brothers. I saw them in their house and gestured to them, then ran back into my home because soldiers were threatening people. That's when I heard an armored vehicle stopping in front of their house.
Neighbors saw how soldiers took them away, so she ran out again.
I told the other soldiers they took my family. They said go home, that I didn't need to worry, that they were taking them to the battalion for questioning before returning them home.
Instead, they reappeared in pictures circulating on social networks, dead, some dressed in fatigues, with pistols or a grenade at the side of their body.
Anybody who knows my sister-in-law will tell you she hated boots. She never wore boots like those. You don't need to be a forensic expert to know that this was staged.
Many of the almost 5,000 refugees who fled the clashes share similar stories, accusing the military of illegal detentions as well as looting and burning homes.
Under pressure, Venezuela's Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino said the armed forces were obliged to defend the country from irregular groups, but added that human rights needed to be respected and that the events at the border would be investigated.
But Venezuela's former prosecutor general, now an opposer of President Nicolás Maduro, told Al Jazeera that will likely not be the case.
There is no type of accountability today in Venezuela, nor any institution that investigates. Look at how the prosecutor's office, controlled by the usurpers, took 5 days before announcing they were going to investigate the events at the border. Such serious facts should be investigated immediately.
Like countless other Colombians from this border region, the Ramirez had fled to Venezuela over a decade ago at the height of the conflict between guerrillas and state forces in the country. But now the same kind of violence seems to have reached them on the other side of the border. Alessandro Ampietti, Al Jazeera Arauquita.
France's biggest COVID vaccination centre, the National Velodrome in Saint-Quentin near Paris, where the French cycling team is training for the Tokyo Olympics. The elite athletes are an unusual distraction for those waiting. The elderly are being prioritised in the country's vaccine rollout that began in December. People like Monique, who hopes that being immunised will allow her to resume a more normal life.
The idea is to have more freedom. It's my first dose. After the second, hopefully I can look after my grandchildren in their school holidays.
An average of 2,000 people are vaccinated here each day, but Saint-Quentin's mayor says the operation will be soon scaled up, with a drive-in facility and more staff.
The new virus variants are placing extra pressure on us because more people want to be vaccinated, and fast. You sense people are scared. Cases in schools are going up. We feel the pressure is rising.
Dozens of mass vaccination centres like this one are being prepared around the country after French President Emmanuel Macron promised to accelerate the country's immunisation campaign.
Vaccination is a national priority. There are no public holidays, no weekend for the vaccination campaign. We have to vaccinate as much as possible in all the vaccination centres open at the national level.
Macron has stepped up the sense of urgency that was lacking at the start of the vaccine campaign. So far, 1 in 10 people has received a first dose in France, compared to half of Britain's adult population. The government has blamed pharmaceutical companies for failing to deliver enough doses to the European Union. Now some doctors say that a lack of facilities and bureaucracy could hinder progress.
Donc il faut qu'on ait la certitude, d'avoir les doses.
The priority is having enough doses. Then it must be easier and simpler to take appointments, and we need to offer vaccinations, not just in vaccinodromes, but more locally, to make it easier for everyone to find a vaccination centre.
Macron wants 30 million people immunised by mid-June, with every adult offered the possibility of a jab by August. The president is gambling on a major vaccine push to avoid another national lockdown. But with daily infection cases rising fast, hospitals in many regions saturated, it's likely to be a challenging race to the finish line. Natasha Butler, Al Jazeera, Saint-Quentin-en-Yvelines.
The SKN Newsline website now offers you more news. Log on to www.sknnewsline.com for local, regional, and international news. You can also watch the latest newscast and keep abreast with news in sports, all from sknnewsline.com. That's www.sknnewsline.com. News at your fingertips.
Stay abreast with news on St. Martin with SMN News. Visit www.smn-news.com for up-to-date news, scoops, opinions, and hard-hitting facts. SMN News, we tell it like it is. Visit our website www.smn-news.com.
It's the new and improved Skn Newsline Android mobile app. With the Skn Newsline app, you can watch our news reports, the Skn Newsline newscast, sports, special features, and so much more. You can also send us a WhatsApp or call us directly. Go in the Google Play Store, search Skn Newsline, and download the app today. The Skn Newsline mobile app. News on the go.